Welcome back, everybody. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know I love a bargain. And for the last couple of weeks, I've been testing out a 20mm f2.8 lens by Tamron for the Sony E Mount. Recently, I picked up my first full-frame Sony camera, and I'll have a link to the review of that in the description below. And I needed some lenses. So I picked up an 85mm from Sony and a 20mm from Tamron. And mostly the Tamron because it was cheap and I shoot a lot of wide-angle stuff right now. I really hadn't read a lot about this lens before I took it out to test it. When I got it home and did some research, I was really surprised at how much you get for the price. As I'm recording this, these are selling for about $250 on sale. I think normally they're around $300 in the United States. And I'm really surprised at what you get for that price. This lens has weather sealing, it focuses incredibly close for a wide angle, it's got a really quiet motor, and I was super happy with the results I got. So I'm going to walk you through some of the tests that I did and show you the footage and the photos. So for the first test, I decided to take this out and shoot a time lapse. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know that I'm working on a long-term time-lapse project. It's a full year, and this week is the last week of capture. Decided to take this camera out with the 20mm lens and see what it could do. It was a nice cloudy day, and the footage that I got really made me happy. If you look at this, I'm capturing a ton of the tallgrass prairie itself and a lot of the sky at the same time. And I think it tells the story of the changing seasons, shooting with wide angles, so you see both the ground and the sky. As in this part of the country, the difference between winter and summer is pretty dramatic. And I think it did a really good job. As I was walking back to my car, I remembered that there is a grain silo that they converted to be kind of an observation tower on that site. It has a cool open mesh staircase inside. I thought that might be a fun shot, but it is kind of dark. So I wanted to see how a 2.8 lens would handle it, and it did just fine. The wide-angle distortion that you expect inside of such a small space is kind of fun, and it's kind of hard to see what you're looking at, but the colors kind of popped. It's fairly sharp, and I was really happy with what I got there. I don't think this is anything other than a fun test, but it was a neat shot. On the second day that I was testing this lens, I took it out to a local dam site lake. We have a lot of rivers that run through town, and flooding is an issue, so there's a lot of flood control lakes, and the agency that manages those builds parks around them, so it's a neat place to go and see some wildlife sometimes, and trees and water, and see people out boating. It's a neat place to test this kind of gear, and the first thing that I thought I would shoot was a vlog. I don't vlog a whole lot handheld, and maybe this will change my mind. And here's that test. All right, I'm out at a local park and just testing how this does as a vlogging lens. Looking in the viewfinder, looks like I've got plenty of room over my head, so it looks like it's doing pretty well. Of course, we'll look back in the studio to see. While I was recording this, I mentioned that the only stabilization was the in-body stabilization in the A7 Mark IV. That turned out not to be completely true. I had accidentally set it to standard and not active, and I drink a lot of coffee apparently, and my hands had a little bit of a micro jitter, so I did add a little bit of stabilization in post, which causes a small crop. The active stabilization in the A7 Mark IV also induces a small crop, so I think the field of view is pretty similar, but just so you know, I did crop in a little bit to stabilize in post. This lens does not have any stabilization, so me walking around, the stabilization is all coming from the camera body. But it looks like it did a pretty good job. After I was done with that vlog test, there's a floating bridge that goes across one side of the lake. I thought it'd be fun to take a shot from that of the lake, and there was a sailboat sailing around on it. I thought that would be a neat test. So I wandered out to the middle and shot this. And something I noticed the first time I went to Colorado to shoot mountains with a wide angle lens, I realized how small distant things look through wide angles. And I don't even know if you noticed the sailboat in this picture, but it did a great job of capturing the sky, the ground, the lake itself, everything surrounding it. This isn't a giant lake, and it really makes it look huge. It was a fun shot, and I think this lens handled it really well. If you're used to a little tighter lens, I think that my most commonly used focal length is probably a 35mm equivalent. It's surprising how close you can get to things and still get them in shot. As I was walking back to my car, walking down a trail, I thought I saw a neat scene, and I put the camera up to my eye and realized I could take 20 or 30 steps forward and still frame the tree on the right of the path the way I wanted to frame it. And it's really surprising if you're used to a little bit longer focal length. But I like this shot, and I think it illustrates, I mean, it's not a spectacular shot, but it illustrates what the lens can do really well. And then just a little bit further up the path, there was a tree that had really gnarly roots. And to show you how close you can focus, I snapped a picture of the roots, and I literally can reach out my hand and touch the tree. It distorts a little bit, but you get a whole lot of information from fairly close. And I think that's a neat effect, especially if you're looking for something artistic. And we're going to demo some artistic macro stuff here in a little bit. One thing that people talk about with wide-angle lenses is how hard it is to get background blur. I don't think when I'm doing nature shots I want background blur, but if you really want it, this lens focuses remarkably close. I took a picture of this coneflower and I'm almost touching the flower with the lens. And because it's so close, the depth of field really compresses and the back is a little bit blurry. It's a fun shot. I think this set of flowers that I walked past is a little bit past their prime, so there's little brown spots everywhere. Maybe not the best example, but it was there and I thought it illustrated the close focus distance pretty well. After that shot, I decided it'd be fun to play with the macro further, and I took it home and I set up a light table that I have and printed out a test print. This is on thin copier paper, so the light went through it really well. And this is just text with, all it says is over and over again what font it is, what size it is, in progressively large font sizes. And thought it'd be fun to shoot that. Again, I am not the most steady shooting platform, and I probably had way too much coffee. And you kind of see that in the shot. I rotated a little bit to the right, and there's a little bit of distortion on the right side of this shot. But you can see the individual dots in the laser print, which I thought was amazing. I'm darn near touching the paper. I did a test touching the paper and it wouldn't quite focus. You have to back it off just a little bit. But this is an amazing close focus shot. So after that, I was like, well, what else do I have that'd look fun on a light table? And I remembered for a photo years ago, I had bought a bunch of really cheap marbles. So I gaff taped down a couple of little bamboo skewers here to keep the marbles from rolling out onto the floor, tilted the table a little bit, and threw a bunch of them on there, and took this shot. And it's wild. You're getting wide angle distortion. The stuff towards the outer edge is blocking stuff past it a little bit. The variety of views here is just really neat. I thought this was a really fun shot. I may redo it with a little more careful prep so there's not so many gaps between the marbles. But for a quick shot, I'm really happy with it. And it really illustrates the artistic capability of this lens. I don't think this is a macro where I'm going to shoot detailed shots of something I want represented looking very natural. But if I want to exaggerate something and get really close, this has a lot of possibility. So with all that praise, is there anything that I don't like about this lens? And I think at the price tag, the answer is not anything that's really fair, but if I'm going to nitpick, the focus motor is a little slow and there's a little bit of barrel distortion. Now, slow focus motor in a $250 lens, I think you should probably expect that, but it is super quiet. So if you're doing video, I don't think you're going to hear it with most microphones. And the barrel distortion is pretty common with wide-angle lenses. Even some high-end wide-angle lenses have a bit of barrel distortion, so I don't think that's a deal killer, but it is there. When this lens first came out about 5 years ago, I saw some comments that they were disappointed that it only had a maximum aperture of f2.8. In a $250 or at the time probably $350 lens, I think 2.8 is really good. Considering the size, weight, and cost of this lens, I think 2.8 is fantastic. I can handhold a lot of shots at 20 millimeters at f2.8 in some really dark situations, particularly with a camera that has IBIS on it. So I don't think that's a deal killer at this price tag. You know, if you want to get a Sony G Master with a 1.4 aperture, if you've got the budget for that, that's fantastic. It's probably a better lens, but for $250, I think this is a really amazing lens. And one last thought, I shoot Micro Four Thirds. That's probably the largest camera system that I have, the most lenses and most bodies. And one of the things that I love about that system is how small and light it is. This is the first lens that I've shot for Sony that really embodies that small size. And I know when Sony first came out with their mirrorless camera system, being small was one of the things that they really focused on. So this combination of a full frame camera and a 20 millimeter lens that's so small, it's bigger than my Micro Four Thirds stuff for sure, but it's super portable, it's super light, and that really makes me happy. So overall, I'm really happy with this lens. I hope you found this video really useful. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. This is a growing channel and I appreciate your support. Good luck on your art journey and we'll see you next time.